Hello, welcome to the Pit Stop Podcast. I'm Braydon Dowler-Coltman. I'm here with Jordan Dowler-Coltman in the flesh. This is the first time we're recording together. Excited about that because we get to share one mic.
Yes, one mic, and speaking moistly within a close proximity instead of over Zoom. Very exciting.
Here we go. All right, we had a really exciting race 2 weeks ago, Baku City Circuit. This is what you want. This is what I want as an F1 fan. I want drama. I want a racetrack like it was in Azerbaijan. Like this is exciting. Tight quarters. You can't. It's really hard to pass. It seems like it's really hard to see, and there weren't a lot of accidents, but we did see some collisions. We saw some mistakes taken by some drivers, and we saw some results that were, I would say, unexpected.
I think more than just collisions, we saw some tire drama and some collisions caused by some tire failure. You were right. It is back-to-back races on street courses. So obviously we had our very sort of pedestrian, slow Monaco race where we didn't have actually any yellow flags for the first time in like 10 races at Monaco. So that was a big sort of change from that. So we expected a little bit more action in Baku, and we got a little bit. They do have those two really long straightaways where there is space to pass, but you got to be in the right place. And if it's tight, both cars get DRS. It's really hard. And we did see that happen a few times. Lewis had a hard time trying to catch up to people because he just couldn't get that little bit of edge. But the straightaways in Baku certainly led to a bit more drama. And then, we did have some collisions. Obviously, Lance Stroll leaving the race early because of a tire failure. And that was sort of ominous because it was foreshadowing as to what was going to happen later. And obviously, race leader and championship points leader, Max Verstappen, who was healthily in the lead, failed to finish the race because he blew a tire. And luckily for him, he found the right wall on the straightaway, or he could have been in a real uncomfortable crash. So scary moment there for him, and obviously very disappointing moment for him and for Red Bull. But Red Bull kind of gets a little bit lucky on the restart after the red flag too, because Lewis Hamilton also had some trouble, and we can talk more about that in a second. But drama, excitement, exactly what you want.
So those two accidents, or I don't even know if you call them accidents. I guess they're back tire popping essentially. I think that's what happened. It's the exact same thing that happened. Verstappen and Stroll.
Exact same tire, yeah.
So why?
Well, that's the question. And obviously we don't know exactly why. The forensic sides of both, the teams and also the tire manufacturer Pirelli will commence, and both sides have a different prerogative as to what the answer to that is. So they'll be looking for different things. Obviously it's important for Pirelli to be able to, assure all of the teams that their tires are safe and that, they're providing adequate technology in those. Obviously, there's been a lot of different changes in the tire compound. We're on slightly softer tires this season than last season. So there's some question marks. Is it too soft? Are we pushing the tires too close to the edge of their capability? The street circuit courses are a little bit more arduous or technical when it comes to like tire temperature and how critical that can be. So that probably did play a factor in terms of how they performed. But very inconvenient, let's say, for Pirelli that both of those two accidents were caused by the right rear tires failing, whether it was debris, which is obviously what they're going to hope for as the tire manufacturer, that you hit some, bit of carbon or something from an earlier crash. But not a great look when both of those two teams lose a driver, and especially for Red Bull, considering it cost them the race. From Verstappen's side of it, they were able to win the race with their second driver, but that wasn't the plan.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some impressive outings for some of the drivers in that race. We've got, like you said, Sergio Perez finished P1.
Yeah, and Perez had a great day because he just kind of hung in there the whole time. Obviously Lewis wasn't really a factor for Verstappen. He couldn't get around Gasly early in the race. He'd struggled all weekend. He was hoping for a bounce back race following the struggles they had in Monaco, and that just did not happen for them. They've really struggled on those street courses this year. That's just what the Mercedes is giving them, and they've been experimenting with different things. But it meant that Perez was in a really great spot to sort of lie in wait, let's say, it looked like for a good portion of that race, we were going to get a 1-2 finish for Red Bull. And that's obviously ideal. That's what that would have been a dream scenario for them as a constructor, to get those very coveted position points. But again, yeah, Perez put himself in a position to succeed, and luckily kind of picked up after the mistake, or the failure of the tire for Verstappen.
What was fun about this race was, we got the yellow flag after Verstappen.
Red flag. Yeah, they had to stop the race actually to make sure everything was safe, because that was the second time that a tire had failed, and it was on such a dangerous part of the course that they red flagged it with what, like, I think there were 3 laps or 2 laps. Well, it was 3 laps, but they technically a third lap occurred under yellow, and then when they flew, the red flag came out, it was 2 laps, right? So we got a sprint finish. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that's what's exciting.
Yeah,
typically we're used to 60 laps or 70 laps, and it's who can get ahead and who can get further ahead.
And often when you get the red flag, there's still a quarter of the race left. So it bunches everybody back up, and the weaker cars unlap themselves and all of that. But you don't usually get literally a sprint finish and thinnest of margins for error, and we saw exactly how thin they really were.
So this error we're talking about, specifically with Lewis Hamilton there in the last, he was in second, I think, heading back into that. He took the lead, and then all of a sudden, I don't even think it was a lockup. He pressed a button.
No, so he did lock up but let's go back to the restart. So they came out, they did their formation lap, or their sort of the formation lap, for, I guess is what they would call it, behind the safety car, making sure everybody's there and unlapping. I think it was just the 2 Haas cars at that point that were completely lapped. So they unlapped those cars. Everyone's trying to get some tire temperature. And there are many different ways that different teams have engineered their cars for maximum tire temperature. Right. And what they need to do. You'll see different strategies where some cars are weaving a lot during those formation laps, or when they're behind a safety car, just trying to keep up temperature. Some teams like to accelerate and slow down to get that temperature. And the way Mercedes does it is that they have a few different buttons on the steering wheel that basically change the amount of power given to the front and rear brake. Okay. So what they do is they increase power to one of the brakes, which means that those brakes run a little bit hot when they slow down or speed up during that formation lap. They're at slower speeds, so it's safe, but they put 60% on the front tires and 40 on the back, or sometimes as much as 90 on the front and only 10 on the back, and then they accelerate and slow down, and that increases the friction on those front brakes. Yeah. Obviously, you don't want to be having those kind of controls on during a race condition, because you need your tires and your brakes to be functioning at maximal capacity. Everything went fine. If people watched it, they remember that his brakes were running very hot when they
were smoking before the.
And I think a lot of people in the moments after assumed that was a problem. It actually wasn't. It was quite expected. Mercedes did not think there was any issue with that, because the brakes were running very hot, but the minute he started driving, they would have cooled down. The airflow would have cooled them down. Everything was fine. So he had put the car in its standard start configuration. Everything was happy and ready to go. But if you watch the replay of the cockpit camera, you'll notice that Hamilton kind of had his left hand out of the regular position, let's say, on the steering wheel. So the F1 steering wheels, right, kind of have 2 handle positions, finger slots, where there's easy access for controls with thumbs. They can get their back fingers onto the paddles for shifting and all of that. His hand was up a little bit, and I think that was just almost a standard position for how Lewis likes to start when he knows he has to cover. And he was looking to immediately move up against Perez, who was in the sort of pole position of the restart and had that little bit of advantage. And so he wanted to immediately move right, get into that lead position. It's exactly what he did. So everything to that point's functioning. He makes the move, like you said, took the lead. And then immediately on this course, there's the straightaway into a very tight turn. As he went to brake, or somewhere even moments before that, because of the position his hand was in, he hit a button. He hit what they call brake magic, which is when they put all of that power to the front brakes. Right. So now he has 90% of his brake power when he puts his foot on the brake going just to the front tires. That's way too much pressure for those tires and at that speed. Obviously, they locked up immediately. He had no chance of being able to recover. Anyone who's ever done driver's education knows that if you lock up your brakes, the steering wheel's doing dick call for you. You can't turn. Not going to happen. And so, he's at a very high rate of speed. At that point, I think he's already traveling at like 150 kilometers an hour, and he had no choice but to simply move straight forward, and the car just took him right out of
the fact that no other cars hit him on
incredibly
that turn,
lucky
because it was a left turn.
Absolutely.
He took
lots
that
could have happened.
away.
And he luckily they ended. Credit to the designers of the course too. There's a runoff there for this exact scenario, or at least a scenario similar. I don't think they ever.
Well, we saw quite a few of those runoffs.
But it also opened the door then for two guys, at least one of them, to get on the podium that probably didn't expect to be there. But
who's that, Vettel?
Well, I think Vettel never expected to be on the podium earlier in the race.
This was Aston Martin's first podium.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's good. It's good. It's good for the sport.
Absolutely.
To have different cars make it on podium. Unfortunate for Lewis.
And a very unlikely or a very unusual mistake for Lewis, right? Very rarely does he make these kind of errors. And something maybe the engineers and he will look at seeing, is there a way to kind of, adjust the way the button sits so that it doesn't happen again? I'm sure he will never have that mistake happen again after what it cost them, especially when your championship rivals already out of the race and out of the points, and you have a chance to take not only the lead back but to increase it. And now both of the two leaders in the championship points finished with nothing. So that was a big loss for both of those teams for sure.
Yeah, but a great race, really great race.
And like you said, some great guys on the podium. We didn't expect Vettel, and obviously also Pierre Gasly back up on the podium again. And so big for both of those drivers and big for the teams.
Yeah, a great race, Azerbaijan, and hopefully it will be just as exciting this weekend.
Are you feeling hungry? Busy Bee Vegan is a plant-based meal prep service offering pre-made, delicious, and healthy plant-based meals to the Greater Toronto Area. Whether you're curious about plant-based vegan eating, looking to improve your overall health and wellness, or simply too busy to cook, Busy Bee is for you. Their plans are focused on eating clean without sacrificing taste and contributing to a healthy planet. They have made it super simple. Choose and order your meals from the multiple plans they offer, and they will deliver your meals in environmentally friendly compostable containers right to your door. You can find them on Instagram at Busy Bee Vegan Meals or on Facebook at Busy Bee Vegan. Go check out a small local business in Toronto and save the hassle of COVID grocery shopping and cooking. Let the Busy Bees feed you buzz-worthy meals.
All right, we've got a race this weekend, Sunday, 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. It's the Circuit Paul Ricard, which is the French Grand Prix.
We weren't there last year.
We weren't there last year.
No, they did not hold the race here due to COVID.
Okay.
So it was one of those courses that we didn't get to see last year. Just all of us did the different things going on in the way they shuffled the season around. We didn't get to be here last year. However, the previous two times we've been at this course in recent history, 2018 and 2019, Lewis has won. Okay. So this is definitely a course Mercedes is looking for a bounce back week. I know I said that last week and they didn't get it, but this is a little bit more of a favorable, more traditional circuit court. We're not on the streets of a city anymore, and that definitely I think would favor the designs of Mercedes and a few other teams, to be honest with you, who also are looking for. Obviously, the hometown team of Alpine, the home country team of Alpine is going to be looking, and they had a great couple practice runs on Friday, so hopefully they will.
Esteban Ocon getting locked up for another few years.
Big year big announcement coming out of there. So he's the future of Alpine, so big race for a couple different teams and a very different course. That'll be exciting for sure. I think the other team to watch for this week will be, and we've said this a couple times too, is McLaren. A little bit disappointing last week for them. They didn't have the outing that they were hoping for after a great trip to Monaco.
Yeah.
But they have heavy hearts. One of the owners of their team passing away recently, so they have a special livery for him. But also just a interesting little note on the season. Lando Norris is now the only driver to have scored points in every race. Okay. So one of the younger drivers who has obviously we've been talking about a lot on this show throughout the season so far. He's one of the future sort of stars, I think, of this sport. He and Russell and some of these guys we can expect in the next couple 5 or 6 years to be competing for championships. We'd like to hope. And I think he'd like to be doing that with McLaren. Obviously, they would like him to be doing it with them. It seems like a really good sort of marriage there with that team and driver. And so he will be looking, I think, for a bounce back week this year, this week, not only because it's good for the team, but also there's a lot of emotion on the line for that team, with sort of doing it in honor of their former owner.
And we've got we're about a third of the way through the season.
Yep. And this race also, I should just mention, this stop on the schedule changed a few times. This was originally going to be the Canadian Grand Prix.
That's right.
Obviously that couldn't happen. And so then they wanted to move it to Turkey.
Okay.
And then that didn't happen. So then we ended up back in France, which is great. We're happy to be back in France. It's awesome it's happening in this weekend. But I think it's another reminder that things are changing all the time. We've already lost Singapore. That's races come back off the schedule. They had tried to make it work, much like they tried to make Canada work, and we'll see how many other races shift around. But exciting to be in France.
Well, and the other thing that's something just to note is that I guess you can't really call it a salary cap, but there is a cap for builds now that hasn't been there before, and it's going to go down next year, and it's going to go down again the following year. So what is who does that help in this situation?
Well, I think the idea of it is that it would try to even the playing field, level the playing field for some of those bottom table teams, the Haas's and the Williams and some of the teams that have struggled to keep up financially to the powerhouses of Red Bull and Mercedes,
who can just fix or
they're the Bayern Munichs or the Manchester Cities, the super teams that have all the money, they can buy all the best things and all the best talent and all the best tools and all of whatever. And in this case, that has created a haves and have nots sort of situation in F1. And that's kind of always been there, but I think they're trying to find a way to balance it. Yeah, there's no perfect solution to that. Obviously, there's always going to be teams that just aren't there. But the hope is that it isn't just because of finances. Right. And obviously that's the goal. We talked earlier in the year about Haas. They're not developing this season's car. They're looking to the future because they expect that hopefully with some of these regulations they'll be able to be a little more competitive.
But they can't transfer saved money or payroll to next year.
It's not about that. No.
So they're just
about the
focusing
development of next year's car.
Okay.
They're not going to put the time energy, let's say, and the staff energy into trying to be competitive this year because they already understand where they are. You know what I mean? It would be a bit like a team that knows, like an NHL team that knows it needs to rebuild, going out and paying for a bunch of rental players at the deadline.
They know they're just going to lose it.
It's a waste of their effort, right? Instead, they should develop the young talent they have, knowing that if they are patient, they may be able to rebuild in the off season, let's say. And
specifically
I think
the car or the drivers? Because
No,
I don't
the
see Mick
drivers need to
Schumacher
develop.
sticking around with Haas for all that long.
You'll see him for a year or two for sure. It depends
Mazepin?
on when well, that's a question mark. But yeah, he'll be there as long as his daddy's paying the bills.
Yeah, or as long as he's not, serving military time that he has to.
We could see what happens. But I think both of those drivers are exactly what that team needs right now, which is just guys who are eager to gain experience.
Sure.
And every lap for both of them is valuable. And to be on an F1 circuit in an F1 race, whether you're dead last and being lapped or not, is valuable experience because you're learning about what it takes to make it work. And you're learning from the other people around you. I also think that, you look at some of these rookies and we're seeing a new class of rookies, or I shouldn't just say rookies, but younger drivers, because even the guys who've been now a few seasons are really starting to take big steps.
Oh, yeah.
Russell probably will be with Mercedes next year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rumors about him taking Vettel's spot. Bottas's spot.
Who's not having a great year.
Valtteri's spot.
No,
and he's not. He's not making it any easier for himself. You're right.
Yeah.
But, that's the logical next step for a Russell. He gets that because not only is he a good driver, but he's developed. And he's taken time to develop with a bad team like Williams, and that's benefited him to at least be getting that opportunity. Lando Norris is developing too. He's on a much better team, so it's a faster trajectory. But we've also seen improvement in guys like Lance Stroll. He's been a better, more complete driver. The way in which he responded after the frustration of last week blowing his tire, that was a very different driver than we would have seen a couple years ago in Lance Stroll. Yes, obviously Gasly, but more I think his teammate this year and an actual rookie in Sonoda is doing really, really well. And the more important thing for Tsunoda is that he is spending almost all of his sort of off time at the team facility working with the engineers to develop the car. And what that says is that this is someone who wants to be the full package driver. He doesn't just want someone to give him the keys and say, go. He wants to be, a part of that team. And that is the kind of driver that, a team like that is really going to benefit.
Well, and he had a 7th place finish last race. And I think that's, it only helps his confidence. So
absolutely
great to see that. What are your podium predictions for this upcoming race here in France?
I don't know. I mean, again, it's so hard with you have these two powerhouses at the top. You always kind of expect Verstappen or Lewis to be there. But I would say, I would not be surprised if Norris found a way to get up there. I would not also be surprised, to be completely honest with you, if one of the Alpine drivers, especially maybe Ocon, was competing for it. They had great practices. That car is fast on this track. They've done a lot of different experimenting. It would be a bit of an outside chance that they get there because they just haven't raced well. But also some of the more successful teams so far this season have seemed to have struggled this week a little bit with this course. It's really going to depend on how windy it is because some of these cars can handle the crosswinds better than others. The Ferraris really had a hard time with it, and actually so did the Aston Martins. Both Vettel and Lance Stroll lost the cars at one point with crosswinds during practice on Friday. Vettel ended up in the wall, and I think one of the Ferraris also spun out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with qualifying. That'll tell us a lot. But yeah, I think the third step is open, but I also think it's very possible we see the usual suspects. It's very possible that Perez has another great race because he has been nothing if not consistent.
Well, okay, so speaking of consistency, we saw Charles Leclerc in P1 for the last 2 races to begin after qualifying, and the first one, he didn't even get the race. Yeah. The second one, it didn't seem like he could even compete. I mean, he finished 4th, but he wasn't in 4th by the time.
He got very lucky in Baku to get the pole. He kind of got a tow from Lewis and had everything go right for him on his qualifying run. So one of those situations where, great, you still earned it, but you didn't necessarily have the car to actually be there under race conditions, and then that showed, right? Yeah. But yeah, he's also driven well on street circuits, so we'll see if the car and he can do well on this course. It all depends on a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces there, but I wouldn't expect him to.
So you've got Hamilton?
Yeah, I have Hamilton, Verstappen, and either Perez or Norris would be my guess, if I was going to play that game. But it could, honestly, I think the third step of that podium is open to a lot of different guys depending on the race conditions.
Right.
And both the two top guys have to be able to bounce back after frustrating weeks.
Let alone finish the race.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully those tires...
Who do you have?
I've got Verstappen. I think Verstappen is... I think he can taste being in the lead when it comes to these points. I think he wants to maintain that. I mean, all of these guys are competitive, so obviously they all taste that wanting to win. But I do have Verstappen. I've got Verstappen. I've got Lewis, and then I've got Pierre Gasly. I think Pierre Gasly at home. He's just proving so much, and I don't think he necessarily wants his Red Bull seat back, but he's proving to Christian Horner and that team that they made a mistake. And now, obviously, they've got a very good team with Verstappen and Perez, but Gasly is he's one to watch. So I've got Gasly in the top 3. It's going to be a fun race. It's going to be really exciting. Once again, we've got it to the Circuit Paul Ricard, Sunday, June 20th, 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
French Grand Prix.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in. And that was Pit Stop. The Pit Stop podcast is presented by HatTrick Sports and is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. The show is produced by Jordan and Braydon Dowler-Coltman each week, but mainly Jordan. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening.